Welcome back to Our Talks podcast. I'm here with a very special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I am Sydney Allen. I am so happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here. I'll give a quick little intro to how we met and how we know each other.
Okay.
It's very, very quick. It's American Cancer Society Board for Making Strides Against Breast Cancer. And last year's my first year. Was that also yours?
Yes.
And you were recruited by the lovely Miss Brie Huff?
Yes.
Amazing. She has a knack for assembling talent.
Actually also give Megan some credit. I actually reached out to Megan.
Oh, I love that.
Yes,
how did
she put us all together?
Become affiliated with that?
With Megan?
Yes.
So we...
With the whole, did you see her post about it? Did
yeah.
you see?
Yeah. So we're friends from a long time ago when ran with the same crowd. Yeah. And I was actually recovering from a mastectomy and just scrolling, and it just popped up and
tugged in your heartstrings,
literally like a God thing. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm reaching out. So I did.
I love that.
Yeah.
No, that gives me chills already.
Yeah.
I'm on a streak of getting emotional during podcasts, so who knows where today's going to take us.
I'll be right with you. No worries.
Well, we don't have tissues.
Okay.
And I'm not wearing waterproof mascara.
But
so great.
Make it work.
So we met through this board. It's honestly one of the most, I shouldn't say this because I have other obligations too, but it's the most fun thing I've ever gotten to serve on.
Yeah.
It's all women, which I don't want to say makes a huge difference, but it does. Mm-hmm. It makes a huge difference in productivity and enjoyment and everything. All of our meetings are over lunch. Last year was Big Whiskeys. This year it's been Millwood. And it's hard to keep on track only because we all get along so well.
Yeah.
But again, Brie does a great job at reeling us all back in. It's been so fun and so fulfilling. And last year, even though the event was freezing cold.
Rainy.
Yeah. It was outside. It was freezing cold. It was Halloween weekend.
Yeah.
So it was honestly a very, very busy weekend for me because I had to work a wedding the entire day. Gosh. So I came only for the setup and then for part of the walk because my mom was one of the Portraits of Hope. It was literally so cold that I couldn't even help decorate the golf carts because my fingers were freezing, but it was still so much fun. It was just great for the turnout, and this year will be even better.
Yes.
So before we dive into all things we'll just give a few overview items of what's coming up with ACS.
Yes.
So I'll put the dates either on the window, the video, or I'll put them in the text box below because I don't want to mess up any dates if they're subject to change. But there's the ACS walk, which is in early November. It's the 2nd.
Yes.
So that should not change. That is fully set in stone. We're still looking for teams, sponsors, anything that you guys can provide, then just let me know and we will get you linked in. We also have a pink soiree coming up at Urban Grounds. Last year, it was such a fun event. It's just like a pink little cocktail party. There's light hors d'oeuvres. It's mingling. It's full of giveaways with local businesses. One of my favorite events. And then this year, we're also introducing a pickleball tournament at Millwood. So stay tuned for all of those dates. And when this episode releases, we're also doing a giveaway in conjunction with Big Blanket Co., where we're giving away a hoodie and a big blanket. So it's going to be fantastic. Stay tuned for all of those things. Those are all the plugs for now. But would you like to get into the serious stuff or would you like to get into the get to know you?
I am at your disposal.
Okay. Well, in the interest of giving you all the time in the world for the serious stuff, let's start with something light.
Okay.
Let's start with your report. So what are you eating, reading, reverse that, reading, eating, playing, obsessing, recommending, and treating?
Eating, anything and everything. Really into summer salads.
Ooh,
right now.
What do you put in your summer salad?
I mean, I'm super simple, so I just want all the veggies, and then I want a fun dressing.
Yes.
I don't
Do you have a favorite right now?
Probably a raspberry vinaigrette, raspberry balsamic, something of those lines.
Oh, I
love
balsamic.
a chicken salad.
Yes.
That's probably my go-to.
That's amazing.
Reading, I am in a slump. And it's stressing me out a little bit.
I just got out of a slump.
Oh my gosh. I go back and forth. I love smutty romance.
Yes. Who doesn't? Who doesn't?
Right? I love romantasy.
I just got my mom into ACOTAR and we hadn't discussed what it contains.
It is.
But I was like, Mom, you have to read this. It's so good. And she's big into political thrillers and she's read dystopian and fantasy in the past.
Yeah.
But I feel like mainstream romance being a little salacious is kind of new. So I was like, you have to read the series. It's so good. And she's heard me talking about it. So then she read it and I was waiting for her to get to those parts.
Those moments.
And I was like, what do you think? And she's like, this is spicy. And I said, I know.
Yeah.
You know, and everything was good until it got to Silver Flames. And that book takes it from it's spicy to ghost pepper.
Yes, it's hot.
Get some milk.
Yes.
Get some milk.
Yes.
So she was like, yeah, that was a lot. I said, I know.
Yeah.
I know. You have to have your rosary and clutch it whenever you're reading it. But it's so good. Exactly.
Yeah. Yes.
Exactly. So good. And I have read them twice all the way through. And then I read Crescent City. Have you read those?
So I've read 1 and 2.
Okay.
I'm probably 25% into 3. And it was just, I guess at the time, I mean, it's been a couple months. I just was
Yeah.
like, this is really heavy.
Yeah.
And this is a lot. And my brain needs light, fluffy romance right now.
Yes.
So
You
I
need, like, a
haven't.
palate
It's
cleanser.
bookmarked. I'm going to go back.
Yeah.
But
I would start
haven't
over,
finished it.
honestly, with
Really?
Crescent City. Like, if you can, because I had a deep fantasy binge through the winter.
Yeah.
I had all of ACOTAR, and then I had Crescent City 1 and 2, and then I switched to Fourth Wing, or maybe it was the opposite. It was Fourth Wing because I knew that Crescent City 3 was coming out.
Yes.
So then I did Fourth Wing, Iron Flame, loved those, so good. And then I went to Crescent City, and I think the combination of having all of ACOTAR and then Fourth Wing and then switching to Crescent City, my brain was like short circuiting.
Like, yeah, you're like, I don't know where I am.
And on top of it being kind of difficult to comprehend
Yeah.
at times, I was like, oh my gosh, like, am I just stupid? Like, am I not processing this well? And after I got online, because I didn't want spoilers, so I waited until I finished the third book. But after I got online and realized everyone struggles with that series, I felt better.
Yes.
But it's great in hindsight. It's just,
there have been times where I've been like, should I get out a pencil and paper? Like, do I need to make a chart? Do I
the
need
TikTok
to?
girls got you.
Yes, because you're like, wait a second, what did I read? Who are we talking about? Where are we going?
You're like, there's military ranks, and then there's
Right,
wings,
and then
and I'm like Googling what these creatures are.
Yes,
I'm like,
yes.
I need less than 5.
But it's so good. And I just, every time I read a book, I'm like, how do people think of this? Like,
Yes.
brains are incredible.
Yes.
For someone to dream all of this up and then put it in words and like
Make us
distribute.
care so much.
Yeah.
Sometimes it blows my mind. Like,
Yes.
whenever I was younger, my dream was to be an author, and
Yes.
like, 8-year-old me.
Yeah.
And then I get older, I'm like looking at all of these incredible writers
Yeah.
that have made these worlds out of nothing, to the point that people are like at each other's throat online debating about these 2 characters that someone just made up.
Yeah.
Like, they're all just made
They're
up
just fake.
one day. She just typed them up.
Yeah.
It blows my mind, but I love the whole series, and it's gotten me so like back into reading, honestly. And as much as I love to pretend like I'm different than all the other girls, I'm not at all, because I hadn't read in so long. I was just into everything else, everything besides feeding my brain.
Yep.
And after all this pressure, I started reading ACOTAR, and it's just not stopped. So I had a little slump for a while, because after Crescent City, it was just such a lengthy binge of all of that. Then I reread ACOTAR, and I just didn't want to start Throne of Glass yet because it's such a commitment.
I haven't. Yeah.
But I did. I dove into it very recently, and I'm on the 3rd book.
Okay.
So it's really good so far.
Okay.
But
And then I see
would love
people,
to
they
discuss.
like tandem read stuff. And I'm like,
That's what was scaring me.
I don't know if
know.
I can do that. And
Well, I was nervous because I saw everyone posting about the order. Like, there's 3 different proposed orders you can read them in. And I just didn't have it in me to really research which one. And I actually bought another book that was going to be my palate cleanser. And then I opened it, and I was like, no, I need fantasy. Like, I need something.
I can't do it right now.
There's got to be some kind of magic. I've been ruined for all of this.
Yeah.
So then I went and dove straight into Throne of Glass, and I'm doing what's called the emotional reading order.
Okay.
So the prequel is the 3rd book in the series.
Okay.
That's what I'm rocking with, and I'll update you
Yes, please do.
if and when you want to know.
Yes.
But the tandem reads what's freaking me out. But then I read an article that was kind of saying if you don't do a tandem read, one of the books ends on a massive cliffhanger, and then you have to read the other one, like all 600 pages of it to get
to.
and I can't handle that.
Like, no.
So I guess I'll go through and like sticky note tab all of them and carry around both my books. I'll clear my whole schedule and
Yes.
get through
I
it.
support you.
Thank
I
you.
say go for it.
Thank you. I
Yes.
appreciate that. Anyways, back to you.
Yeah.
So you're reading, you're in a slump.
Yeah, in a slump. But hopefully we'll get out of that.
Can
We'll
you
get out of
give
that
me your
soon.
favorite characters from ACOTAR?
Oh man. I mean, I love Nesta.
I love Nesta.
I love her.
Oh my gosh.
She's my favorite.
I agree. I
and
agree.
Reese,
Do you have the ick?
No.
Oh.
I'm obsessed with him.
I was obsessed with him. I think I'm still liking him.
Yeah.
But after Silver Flames, I was like,
Like, Yeah.
I lost like a little bit of
No,
it.
I love him.
I love him with Feyre. I love Feyre more.
Yes.
Love Cassian.
Yes.
I really love all of them. Everyone, have you seen the theories about Morrigan being bad?
No.
I saw a few online, and everyone's like, I think that Morrigan's. I'm like, no, she's not. She's perfect.
Oh my gosh.
Stop.
I can't.
I love her.
So I want to reread them too.
Mhm.
I read them
Mhm.
during my recovery. So I feel
Yes.
like partly I was probably like
Mm-hmm.
zoned out on pain meds or
Right, right.
something. But I should, and I've in the last like 3 weeks been like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to start over and
Mhm.
reread them. I
love that.
I just haven't committed.
It is crazy. Are you into Marvel at all?
Mm-mm.
Well, I am, unfortunately, to it like an unhealthy degree, but that's not something I need to get into. The thing about things like Marvel and Taylor Swift and ACOTAR is like
Mhm.
there's so many seeds planted early on,
Okay.
and I didn't realize ACOTAR was the same way because I knew
Yep.
Sarah J. Maas was brilliant, but whenever you go back and read all the books, because she writes them as though she has a plan.
Yeah.
But I've heard interviews where she's like, no, I just sit down and like let the story kind of come to me. And she'll have ideas, but like she doesn't start writing one until the next one's complete,
Finished,
which
yeah.
just blows my mind.
Yeah.
But there are different things, even in the very first book, which I didn't reread like with my whole heart. I
Yeah.
kind of skimmed through it.
Yeah.
But there were things that I was picking up like, oh my gosh, this comes back in this
Later.
book. And
Yeah.
like, it's just so well done. And
Yeah.
it's interesting to go back, like knowing what you know. And then when you're attached to the characters,
Yep.
it's just a whole thing. But
Yeah.
I digress.
Yeah.
What are you playing? It can be music. It can be podcasts. It can be pickleball or other activities.
So in my house right now, we're playing a lot of Yahtzee because it's really hot. So
Yes.
we're teaching my boys the luck of Yahtzee, really. It's just
I love that.
yeah, gets a little bit heated.
Mm-hmm.
No one in my family likes to lose. So
Right.
we're like chucking dice at each other. No.
I can see it.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
family is similar in that we love to play games, but the personalities don't always drive because my
Right.
mom is like a peacekeeper. She's that mom on TikTok where you see memes where it's like my brother and I getting into a slightly heated discussion and my mom like, can everyone please get along?
Yeah.
That's my mom during games.
Yep.
My brother, very competitive.
Yep.
My dad checked out, doesn't care.
Like over it.
Me, I'm cheating.
Yeah.
So
That's my
everyone's
youngest.
mad.
That's
My
my
brother's
little
mad
one.
at me because I'm not allowing him to win
Right.
naturally. I'm
Right.
cheating. I think that should be allowed.
Right.
Because in life, you can take shortcuts to get ahead.
Right.
So why can't I do that in Sorry?
Yeah. You're working smarter, not harder.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm strategizing. I'm sorry that I cheated at Rummy Cube,
Yes.
but I did win. And my mom is crying because my brother and I are about to throw
You're
hands.
fighting.
My
Yeah.
dad is like flipping channels under the table. It's a
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
So is that about how it
I
goes?
can relate. Yeah, my husband and I are both very competitive, so really it's like the two of us competing, and then we're like, fine, we'll let the kids play.
You're like
but-
just smoking them and they're
Yeah,
crying. They're like, this isn't
Yeah, they're
fun.
like, well, this sucks. My youngest one, biggest cheater, hates to
Love.
lose, so he's like, I'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
My oldest is like me, very much a rule follower, so gets literally his feelings hurt if someone's cheating, because why would you do that?
Right.
Why
Why would you do it to me?
Right.
Oh,
How dare
yeah.
you? I'm your brother. So yes,
That's my brother and I.
lots
but
of different
flipped with
dynamics.
ages. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's
I love
been
that.
fun.
Well, Yahtzee's a good time.
It is. And it's, they're counting, and I'm like, we're just
Yes.
keeping the education flowing through summer.
I love that.
With Yahtzee.
I love that. So we should dive into your family since we're talking about them.
Yeah.
So how old are your kids?
They are 7.5 and 9.5. Two
Ooh,
boys.
Fun ages.
They're freaking wild.
Have you gotten any holes in your wall yet?
I don't think we've had holes in walls yet.
Mm-hmm.
A baseball came at the window about a week ago, and
Right.
I heard it, and I was like, it's like
It's
we're
shattered.
done for.
Yeah.
It was not. Thank goodness. But I know that's probably gonna happen.
That
at some
happened
point.
again in my household. Not to always bring it back to myself,
No,
but my brother and his
your podcast.
the neighbor kid hit one through the neighbor's window.
Oh,
Not the
no.
neighbor that was his home, but the other neighbor. And my parents had to go in and say, "Hey, my son just hit
Sorry.
a ball through your
Yeah.
window."
Yeah.
And luckily, they were amazing, kind people.
Yeah.
Which at the time, of course, you think like, well, why wouldn't you be kind? It was an accident. And then now, as a grown up that owns a home and knows how expensive things, and my parents
yeah.
paid for it.
Yeah.
But then as you get older, I'm like, if a kid hit a ball through my window, how much grace would I have?
Right.
You have to take a long, hard look at yourself.
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
are you in the stage of sports mom all the time, or what are they into?
Yeah. My oldest is 4-H.
Mm-hmm.
He's not really into sports. He is the bat boy
Ooh.
for my youngest team, which
Aw.
he took very seriously.
Love
Love that for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then my youngest, we're doing fall baseball and then flag football, and then my youngest races dirt bikes also. So
Oh wow.
he's busy and keeps all of us
And
busy.
so are you. I was gonna
Yeah,
say.
yeah,
That's
it
crazy.
keeps all of us busy. And then on top of that, trying to do things that fulfill my oldest and get him excited too.
Yeah.
So
Sounds like he's very intellectual and
yes, yeah,
That's
he's
amazing.
obsessed with cars and anything to do with collecting cars and knowing
I
everything.
can say, you know
about
what's so
cars.
fun is changing the oil on mommy's car.
Yes, let's teach you how to do that.
That would be so amazing.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. It's
Yeah.
great that they have such different personalities
They
too.
are night and day.
Keep you busy.
Yes, night and day.
You thought you knew how to parent? Guess again.
Yeah, every day it's a new thing. And my husband and I are like, okay.
Are you
what's
ready
it gonna
for
be?
school?
Oh
to
my
start up?
gosh, yes.
Yeah.
I have the benefit of not working from home.
Yes.
I love going to my office. I'm like, see y'all later. I'll be home when I'm home.
Mm-hmm.
My husband works from home, and then his mom watches our kids at our house.
Yeah.
So he has to kind of, he
So we'll
jumps
pray for him.
Yes. And he called the other day and he's like, well, I had a parenting first. And I said, what was that? And he said, well, I had to tell the boys, his mom wasn't there yet, to take the roller skates off before they finish cooking their scrambled eggs. And I was like, what? He's like, yes, they're literally in the house
you heard
on
me.
roller skates cooking scrambled. And I was like, take away, they're making themselves
I was
scrambled
going to
eggs.
say, that's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe we,
Don't wear the skates.
lay some ground rules about
Yeah.
the roller skates in
Yes.
the house. But hey, they're alive and
Yeah.
trying to
Mm-hmm.
be big kids. So
I feel like any parent of boys would be like, yeah.
yep, that
Mhm,
happens.
That does check out. My husband is it sounds like the same age difference, like just under 2 years from your two boys. And my mother-in-law's always telling me, she's like, we had tennis ball marks on the walls. We had heads going through the drywall. We had blanket burns on the carpet because they would use it as a base and slide, and it would like stain the carpet.
I have right now, I really need to repaint every single piece of trim in my house because the hoverboard.
Right.
The hoverboard and the wheels of the hoverboard have made black marks all around my house.
Oh.
Yeah.
So they just got a jump start on the remodel. They thought you wanted
Basically,
black trim.
Yeah, exactly.
So they said,
They're
this
like,
is what
we're
we're
trying
going
it
to
out for you.
That's so nice of them.
Right.
Do you enjoy being the only female in the house?
I do.
I feel like it can go either way.
I do. Sometimes I'm like, it'd be really cool if there was a girl around here. But now when I try and like picture what life would be with girl, I feel like I wouldn't know what to do.
Right.
They're sweet in that, I mean, I feel like a queen.
Yeah.
I mean, they do
Queen of the
love me,
house.
and I love them so much, and I really just can't imagine it any other way. I have a niece and I love her, and so she comes over and I get my girl fill, and
that's awesome.
But yeah, I love the House of Boys.
God knew what he was doing.
Yes.
That's awesome. I love to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, that's so sweet. We got a little off track, but let's go into your obsessions. What are you obsessing over?
Oh man, I don't know. Right now, probably just what I'm obsessing over my fall mantle. Like, how am I gonna decorate my mantle for fall?
I love that you said fall. I've really been struggling to not.
It's really hard.
Dive head first.
It's really hard, and I am usually like August 1st. I'm like, it's fall. We're back to school.
Well,
it's fall time.
The specials are coming out at Starbucks.
Exactly. So. Yeah. But this year I'm really trying to hold on to summer and not rush anything. But it's
hard.
Literally a struggle.
It's difficult because for me it's like a switch.
Yeah.
And I never know when it's gonna flip.
Yep.
And sometimes it's late in the year. Sometimes it's mid-September and I'm still going to the pool and just soaking it up. But this year you remember 2 weeks ago we had like a super, super gloomy, rainy day.
Yes.
And I walked outside and I said, I could really get into I'm feeling spooky.
Yes. I'm like crock pot meals.
Exactly.
Movies.
And it just felt so nice and like the coziness of it. And I've had a great summer. But I honestly think because I had such a great summer, I'm like, that's been good.
Yep.
Everything's checked off. What else is there to do? Let's move on.
Yeah.
But in Missouri, you know how it is.
Yep.
We have like 2 more months of summer and scorching. But it's been kind of mild, so a girl can dream.
Yes.
But I love that. Yeah. I can't wait to see photos of your fall mantle.
Thanks.
So I saw someone post a home goods haul and she had the cutest little bat mugs today. And I was like, I don't need them. I don't need them. I don't need them.
To go over there.
I know. But it was a test of my willpower.
You might need them though.
But I might actually. You know what? I might actually.
Might.
Since you said that, okay. It would be silly for me not to go.
Exactly.
What are you recommending to anyone?
Oh man, recommending. That one's hard.
It is hard.
I feel like all the time I'm like, but
it is hard, especially because I didn't prep you.
Yeah.
I just asked you all this on the spot.
I don't know.
Are you recommending any like TV shows? Any?
I am. Ooh. I just finished My Lady Jane.
I keep
on
seeing
Prime Video.
Okay.
Loved it.
Okay.
It was so good.
We need a new show. We've been watching the Olympics, and before that, we had just started Jury Duty because everyone was recommending that.
Yeah.
So we'll finish it when the Olympics are
over.
Concluded.
Yes.
But we just are in the between shows. Like we've started a few things, and they just have not gripped me like they should. Yeah. But we're spoiled because we had so many good shows in a row that now I'm like nothing will compare to Ted Lasso. Yeah. So I can't.
No. Yeah. Try My Lady Jane. It's good.
Okay.
It's different.
It's a period piece, right? Yeah. Love that.
They're rewriting history.
Ooh.
But the one-liners and the music is good, and it's
amazing.
Entertaining.
I'll get into it.
Yeah.
All right. So we're recommending My Lady Jane. What are you treating yourself to? For me, it's always coffee.
Yeah.
But today it's a Poppy, actually.
Those are so good.
So healthy.
Sponsor her.
Please sponsor me. Last episode, I was talking about Olipop. So either one.
Hey, whoever. We'll take them all.
Who want me?
Yes.
Who wants it?
Yes.
Anybody? No.
What was the question?
What do you recommend? Or what are you obsessing over?
Obsessing over.
No. Treating.
Thank you.
What are you treating?
I mean, I just love a little treat anytime. I mean, I can justify a treat any day.
Just like me.
I'm already like thinking I need a crisp Diet Coke on my way back to the office.
You do.
Treating myself. So just the little, I like just the little treats.
It's just a small little guy that keeps you going.
Right.
That's all you need.
It's just like a glimmer of joy.
And then whenever people will say like, do you know what's in a Diet Coke? I say, and I don't care.
Brings
and
me
I
joy.
do not care. Happiness.
Yeah,
actually.
Exactly.
Do you know what's going to be in me if I don't have one?
Right.
Rage.
Right.
Unfiltered rage.
Exactly.
So that has been getting to know you. That's been amazing. Yeah. I love your report. I agree with everything you said. I would like to know more about why we're here. So I don't want to take away any of your story.
Yeah.
But obviously we're talking about breast cancer awareness. It's something that's very close to my heart. To give you the tiny version of my story with breast cancer. I was in 7th going into 8th grade when my mom was diagnosed.
Okay.
She was not 40 yet. She was 38, 39 and hadn't had her mastectomy, or not mastectomy, her mammogram because you're too young.
Not old enough.
Yeah. Instagram.
Yeah.
Insurance doesn't cover it quite yet. So she found a lump and she felt like a divot kind of around it. And she just said that she had a feeling. And of course I didn't know this because I was in 7th grade.
Yeah.
She didn't bring it up. And my brother was in 4th or 5th grade at the time. So neither of us were old enough to really comprehend what that meant. And no one in our family had ever had cancer before. But you know, when you're a kid, you always hear cancer and you think someone's going to pass away. It's so sad. And unfortunately that's the reality for so many people. But that was the only thing that I think we would have assumed.
Right.
So she was trying to protect us, didn't say anything, went in to her general care doctor and they were like, let's do a mammogram, let's do a biopsy, did all these things. And it came back as breast cancer. No family history, nothing. And I remember so vividly, it was like a Sunday afternoon. We're all in the living room and the phone rang and she went in the other room and she just didn't come back. And then my dad got up and he went in the other room and he just didn't come back. And my brother and I were kind of in there. And you know, whenever you're in that weird age where you can pick up on things, but you don't quite know.
Yeah.
I just remember knowing like something's not right. Something is abnormal. Like, so I just kept talking to Evan. We're just chatting away. And then he ended up going to a friend's house that night. And we went to my grandparents' house because they lived in town, my mom's parents, to tell them. And then I just remember sitting there. Everybody was crying. None of us knew what to do. She's so young. We were obviously so young. And then from there, it was such a blur. And I remember going with him to doctor's appointments because I was so young, but I also wanted to grow up. So I was like, I can go. I want to be a part of this. And then all the meals from people at church and just how sad overall that year was. And my mom didn't take time off of work. She continued to go. She continued to, I would hear her throwing up in the morning from chemo and then go straight to work. And she lost all her hair and she had, you know, headscarves and she truly looked so beautiful. Yeah. Even with all of that, like not even beautiful for a cancer patient. She just looked amazing. I am biased, but still. And it was just like the most transformational thing for our entire family because I think that that's what changed me from a Christian by habit to a Christian by faith and not just something that we would go to church, but it really showed us like you have to have something. You have to have a crutch. Yeah. And we had so many people that were praying for us and holding on to our family, but even me growing up, you know, if I didn't have something to believe in, then I don't know what I would have done to get through all those days. Yeah. But she had a whole cancer treatment. She had a lumpectomy. Luckily, it was very early, but it was aggressive. So she did chemo and radiation, and she was declared cancer-free. And she's had lots of different, you know, fun little complications since then. Osteoporosis, has to have all the different medications. And finally, that was, I think it's been 12 years now. Okay. So she's cancer-free, and we feel so fortunate because I know that's not the case for everybody. We had such a blessed outcome, and my heart just breaks for everybody who has not had that same experience because it was gut-wrenching for us, and we had the best possible outcome. Yeah. So after I graduated college, I wanted to start volunteering because we had received financial assistance from BCFO, which is another local organization, and I've seen my mom walk in their fashion show, which highlights survivors. So that was how I got into the whole volunteer world, was they kind of just welcomed me in. I had nothing to offer, no skills, nothing at all. And they said, come on, you can do something, surely. And actually what I started doing for them was social media. And that then, of course, went into my whole business and my profession, which is a God thing for another day. Absolutely. But working with BCFO and now ACS has just given me the chance to meet so many amazing women with so many stories like yourself. And it will never not be close to my heart. Yeah. But every single time I hear a new story, I'm even more amazed at one, how awful this disease can be and how it just ravages so many lives, but also the strength that can be found with people who have had to overcome things related to breast cancer. Yeah. With that, I pass the baton to you.
Yeah, thank you. So September 2020, crazy times. Yes. My family was already kind of going through it. We had just lost my grandpa to cancer. I'm so sorry. First grandparent that, you know, my sister and I had lost, and
that's
my
so
mom.
Hard.
Yes. Just awful times. It was very fast and unexpected. So just, very hard time. I was in the midst of making a pretty big career move also. So just a lot of like up in the air and just not, you know, where you just don't feel stable. That's kind of where we were. And then on top of that, my mom was, she was at a general, like just with her PCP doctor, felt a lump in her armpit. It was cancer. And so September 2020, she got her diagnosis. It was triple negative breast cancer, very aggressive.
Can you explain a little bit of what that means to people who don't know?
So I am not a medical professional. So
Disclaimer, blanket disclaimer.
yeah, I believe that it's like estrogen negative. And then two other things that it's negative. So 3 things, you're negative, triple negative breast cancer. But it is very aggressive, and treatment is very aggressive to battle it. So we got the call September 2020, immediately scheduled her double mastectomy. Well, first she had lymph nodes removed, and then did a double mastectomy, and then started treatment and just started the battle.
And that's one thing people don't, I think, realize is that whenever you receive a diagnosis like that, it's not straight into chemo. It's you have biopsy after biopsy after scan. And I can't speak to it, but I've heard how incredibly painful they can be.
Yeah.
And then you have your lymph node surgery, which is under your armpit. And then you have your port implant. And sometimes those are different procedures.
Yes.
So there's a lot of surgeries that go into it before you even get to begin treatment.
And that process is like so fast. So you get a diagnosis and they're like, we're moving now. So you're getting your lymph nodes removed. You're getting your port. You're doing all of these things. And I'll get into it later. But as a pre-viver, I didn't have to make those choices so fast. And I think I cannot imagine what somebody goes through when they get that diagnosis and they're like, hey, in the next 4 weeks, here are the 6 procedures we're going to undergo.
Figure it out.
Yeah. Good luck. Let's get this done. And then
hope you have time off. Hope you have insurance.
Exactly.
Hope you have childcare.
Yep. And then we're going to start treatment. So you're going to essentially go through all of these, traumatic things physically, and then we're going to keep treating you. Yeah.
Right.
And so just during that time, we really just tried to rally around her and support her. My parents live in Kansas City area. And so her team is there. I have a younger sister. She's in Chicago. And so we're all kind of spread out. But I like to think that we, supported her as much as we could during that. But she was, an absolute warrior. I get emotional because, again, she was working. She was, doing all the things while feeling terrible and losing her hair, lost her eyebrows. Everything is gone. And then on top of that, a mastectomy. She did direct to implant, so immediately had implants. But that in itself is just such a mind game. And so I will never hopefully understand what that feels like. But I just have so much respect and I can't. Women are insane.
Yes.
Women are just insane. And she was just the true pillar of strength and positivity. And it was
almost to the point that you don't realize how bad it is because they make it seem so conquerable.
Right. Yeah. And so it was just something that definitely changed me forever.
Oh my gosh.
And I assume it changes everybody that watches a loved one go through anything like that.
And it's difficult at any age, but I think whenever you're old enough to really comprehend the possibilities and the implications on their life and their financial situation and everything, it's so terrifying. I had the benefit at least of being young enough that while it was still traumatic, I had the benefit of naivety and being a little bit young. And my brother as well. We both have definitely been changed by it, but I wasn't quite. If it happened now, I think just the awareness of what everything means and being so painfully aware of the possibilities is very difficult. So I can't imagine doing that, also raising kids and everything else that you have going on.
Yeah. And so she beat it. So she's cancer free. Yes. But through her diagnosis, she underwent genetic testing. She has a long line of family history with breast cancer and ovarian cancer on her dad's side of the family. So when you go to your gynecologist and they're asking you, do you have a family history of breast cancer? Typically, if you say yes, they're like, okay, which side? A lot of times you say father's side and they're like, okay, cool. And they move on.
Yeah.
And that is so frustrating because the way genetics works, it comes from your mom and your dad. You're made up of both of them.
It's 50-50.
And so through genetic testing, through her diagnosis, she was diagnosed as BRCA1. She had the BRCA1 mutation. BRCA1 and BRCA2 are the two, they call them the breast cancer genes. Some people say BRCA, some people say BRCA. I say BRCA. I don't know if that's, but so I will reference it as BRCA. But she was BRCA1. And then come to find out, she got that mutation from her dad. And then that kind of trickled figuring out where everybody was and how the lineage and the hereditary cancer has kind of moved through that side of the family. And so because she was BRCA1 positive, that then gave my sister and I the opportunity to have genetic testing. So if you are positive, you have a 50-50 chance of passing it to your kids.
Wow.
And so we were like, we either 50% chance we have it, 50% chance we don't. And so her team of doctors in Kansas City sent me like the test. It's literally a cheek swab. You can do a blood test too. Sent that off. And I feel like I knew. My gut was telling me that I was going to be BRCA positive.
Wow.
And I was. And so I got the test results back. I remember it was a Monday, and I just knew. I knew in my gut that that's what they were going to tell me.
Right.
And so got the phone call. Immediately you start scheduling genetic counseling appointments so that they can explain to you what the heck this means. And basically, if you are BRCA1 positive, you have an 87% chance of developing breast cancer throughout your lifetime. And then it's like 40 to 45% chance for ovarian cancer.
Wow.
To me, I feel like I'm a pretty logical thinker. So I'm like, that's a really high percentage.
Yeah.
I mean, that's 87%. That's high. That's insane.
Let's restate that for those who might be like listening on a drive. That means you have an 87% chance of developing breast cancer in your lifetime. That's a diagnosis in itself.
Basically,
it's
that's
like
how I felt.
Right.
I felt like
you
it
have
was
13% chance that you might never get it. But can you imagine living your whole life waiting for that call, you feel anything, it's going to make you think, this is
what
it.
Is this?
This is the 87%.
Yeah. And so they tell you, they want you to do this genetic counseling so that you do understand, what does this mean? And there are so many women out there that have the mutation that choose to, they do kind of advanced screening. So basically, as soon as I got my test results, I went to the team in Kansas City. I just felt like they took care of my mom pretty well. And they had all of her history. So I just felt comfortable utilizing that team.
Of course.
But you see a gynecological oncologist, you see a breast surgeon, you see just this whole team of people. And they essentially, treat you like you do have cancer. And so you start, the screening process is every 6 months. So you either get an MRI or a breast ultrasound every 6 months. And then you do a CA-125, which is a blood test to check for ovarian cancer. And then transvaginal ultrasounds and every 6 months. And that's basically the plan once you get your results.
Right.
And so
and keep in mind, these things aren't just like, oh, you poor thing, you have this mutation. Insurance is going to cover everything.
So yes. And so that's hard too, because I got lucky because I went through my mom's team. I think that helped a lot.
Right.
And a lot more insurance companies are recognizing that this is, you can't help your genes.
Right.
It is what it is. But I had to fight a couple different times to get things paid for.
Right. Especially being so young, I'm sure.
Right. And even just, going into, I did have a couple mammograms locally. And even the techs in there are like, well, why are you here? You're 30. I was 30. You're 30 years old. And, you say I'm BRCA1.
Yeah,
and some of them
for
are
reference,
like,
people don't get mammograms until you're 40.
Yeah.
So that's a decade you could have just not known what could have happened in that decade.
Exactly. And so, so I started the process of just getting the screenings. But I knew pretty immediately that I would want to have a prophylactic double mastectomy. I don't want to take that chance.
No.
And it took one round of those screening appointments to realize that I don't want to do this every 6 months. It's terrifying.
Yeah. And then every time you're holding your breath and every time you're waiting and waiting for
like,
that traumatic phone call.
Yeah. And it's like, and it's also hard too because you're going to a cancer center. So you're sitting in a waiting room with people who are there for treatment. And just that mind game of it is so hard.
Yep. Because the waiting rooms are not warm and fuzzy.
No.
People are sitting there in wheelchairs. They have oxygen. They have lost their hair. A lot of them are elderly. It's just the most heartbreaking place to walk into.
Yeah.
And if there are places in the world where it feels like there's just oxygen sucked out of the room,
That would be one of them.
that's how it feels. You walk in and you just think, on the one hand, you feel self-pity or pity for the one that you're there with. And then you look around and you see how many people have it worse. And it's this constant battle of why me, why my mom, but also why them?
Yeah.
Do I have the right to be upset? Like, look at these people. It's a whole mind game, like you just said. It's awful.
It is. And it's so emotional. 'Cause, obviously I'm so grateful that I am able to make these decisions to hopefully, prevent this from happening to me. But it's so hard to sit there and be next to people who are fighting for their lives. And it is. You're like, why did I get lucky? I consider myself lucky. Why did I get so lucky and this person didn't? And so, yeah, just the emotional toll that just the day of appointments takes. I'm like, I can't do this. I cannot do this every 6 months and then
that 6 months, every time you have to take off work, you have to take off,
and because I'm doing it in Kansas City, it's a day. It's a day, sometimes a day and a half. And I would stay, at my parents' house to hit my last appointment in the morning and then drive back. And that could have been done here. It could have been done in Springfield, but I felt comfortable with that team. And so also my sister tested positive as well. So she also has the BRCA1 gene mutation. And her and I were only 3 years apart, but we are in such different phases of our lives. I feel like I got married, had my kids pretty young, I'm settled and so for that, I feel thankful. But for her, she's, a newlywed. She hasn't had any kids yet, doesn't know if she wants to. And so the things that she's having to work through too, trying to figure out how to handle this, it's been a lot different.
Right.
But all that to say, she's also going to have a mastectomy. She's scheduled December 3rd. So, but anyway, so I realized pretty quickly, I'm not doing this every 6 months. I can't do this mentally.
Right.
And my husband too, terrified, and
what toll does that take on you emotionally just in between the 6 months, just waiting the whole time?
Yeah. And it's like, okay, that feels weird.
It's like I'm hypochondria, but whenever you have actual reason to be concerned.
Yes. And every little twinge, every little soreness, you're like, this is it.
Yeah.
Like, this is the time that I'm going to go. And they're going to be like, yeah,
especially as a woman.
wrong.
So your hormones are always doing something.
Absolutely.
And whenever it's breast or ovarian cancer that you're concerned about, there's always something hurting. Yeah. Something's always swollen. Something's always enlarged. Something's always not great.
Yeah.
So how could you go through that and give yourself any kind of peace of mind?
Yeah. So, decided with my husband and my family's support that I wanted to have the mastectomy. Scheduled it as soon as I could. I think I had to move my surgery date once, but I ended up having my surgery May 3rd of 2023. So it's been a little over a year since my surgery. And I was able to do direct to implant. So sometimes women have to have the mastectomy and then they do like spacers for a while and then do the implants or different things. There's so many different types of reconstruction where you can use like stomach tissue for a deep flap reconstruction surgery. I mean, there's so many options out there. But I feel good in my decision that I went direct to implant because I was like, it's one surgery, very long surgery, but one surgery,
one recovery.
Yes. And done. And so I did that and, I'm not very good at just sitting still. And
a mastectomy is no joke.
It's no joke. Yeah. And that's something too. I mean, I think there's so much out there that, and people say it with the, just the goodness. It's just coming from a good place, but will you get fake boobs? Will you get a boob job?
Well, whoop-de-doo.
Right. And I'm like, that's not what this is.
Yeah.
But I think it's just lack of education. Anybody that said that to me wasn't trying to hurt my feelings.
No, they think of it in a way that's like, oh, you got this test and then you just get to get a boob job.
You get a free boob job.
And a boob job is, I mean, I understand. I haven't had one. I can't speak to it. One day. Yeah. But I think that it's a very minor surgery as far as recovery. You're back up in a couple days. Yeah. You're very sore, but it's not down and out like with a mastectomy. Yeah. It's very invasive. Also, there's a lot of fear, as we just covered. It's emotional. It's not just, oh, well.
Well, and so
Silver lining.
in a boob job, you're enhancing your natural body. So you're not losing, typically you're not losing a part of you. You're enhancing something that is yours.
Yes.
And so I tend to agree more with the idea, a mastectomy is an amputation.
Yes.
I mean, they are going in and scraping out every last bit of tissue in your breasts and leave you completely flat if you wanted to be. You could have a flat closure and be done. And so I think that is, that's just important. I think it's important to know that they're literally amputating a piece of you.
So it's very reductive to say, well, it's a boob job.
It's a boob job. Yeah.
It's not.
No, it's not.
I've actually watched a boob job because I work with a plastic surgeon.
Yeah.
And they're not scary.
Yeah.
They're very minor. They're quick. It's efficient. A mastectomy is brutal and it's a difficult recovery. And I've only seen it from arm's length, metaphorically.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to even imagine, having what is the most traumatic thing, if not the second most compared to your mom.
Yeah.
And then just reduced to like, oh, well.
Yeah.
And again, people don't mean it that way, but
they don't.
This is
they
an
really
educational
don't.
episode, so
yeah.
we might as well talk about it.
Yeah, they really don't. And so, yes, I have implants. Same implant that they would give somebody who's getting a regular cosmetic boob job. The difference is, though, I haven't had any. Well, I start recovering. About 3 weeks out, I get all my drains removed, and my right side, they're like, she's not looking great.
And I don't want to gloss over that either, because whenever you're recovering, the drains are attached to you.
Oh, yeah.
They're draining fluid from you every day.
Yes.
So you're hooked up. Can you talk about what that was like for those 3 weeks?
So they send you home with a compression. You're wrapped up, send you home with a compression bra, and then I had 2 drains coming out of each side. And so those are hooked to you. So even just like taking a shower is scary, because you're like, is it going to fall out? Am I going to pull on something? It's just,
are you going to get
very
infected?
Uncomfortable. Yes. You have to keep your sites clean.
And your kids are small, so I'm sure they're on you.
And that was really hard for me. Like no snuggles. Yeah. And that was the worst part, honestly, for just my heart, was that my little one is attached to me all the time. Yeah. And that was hard. But yeah, and just you can't prepare yourself for just what it feels like. I mean, I can feel them, they're here, but they're not mine. And I'm still not over that. I'm still not used to that.
And the fact that it wasn't your choice. It's not like you had thought, oh, maybe you'll get a boob job. Yeah. You toy around with it and eventually you do it. And it's something that you wanted and you did it for yourself and you did it for your confidence. It was something out of medical necessity that was, do you want fake boobs or do you want nothing? And that's your only option. And it's very callous the way that it's probably presented to you.
And I've had a large chest my entire life. And if you know me, you knew that I didn't like it. I did not like my boobs. And so I think too, for a lot of people, it was kind of like, well, now you get to deal with your boobs. You don't have to, have them anymore. I would 100% I obviously would want to keep my natural chest.
Yes.
But yeah, I didn't feel like it was a decision to make. I felt like here's your here's what you've been dealt and here are the choices. For me, it was immediately, yes, let's get rid of them.
Right.
So your compression bra, drains, and just things that you don't, I was thankful that I had I borrowed a recliner that was automatic, like you had buttons. And so
AMC style.
Game changer. Yes. Just to not have to use my own muscles to sit up. No arms over your head, just all these things that are really difficult that you wouldn't think about. So at the 3-week mark, my drains came out. But they were like, hey, righty's not looking great. And so I'm like, okay, what does that mean? They're like, we're going to give it another week. But basically, and I also chose to have my nipples removed. You can do a nipple sparing mastectomy, keep your nipples. Breast cancer very, very rarely starts in the nipple, but it's not impossible.
Right.
So for me, I was like, if I'm going through this, take them.
Yeah.
Don't
go back in.
We're not going to play this game, because my luck would be that I'd keep them and then this would happen.
You didn't go all through this just to have everything else.
Yeah.
And at that point, correct me if I'm wrong, but the nipple is just aesthetic anyways, because since they removed all the internal tissue, it's not, if you were to have another baby, you're not breastfeeding. Yeah.
No.
Because it's not like a boob job where you still can because you have your existing tissue.
Yeah.
Everything is gone. So
they do have the ability now. If you do nipple sparing, I think there's techniques out there to use cadaver nerves and different things, so that maybe you get a little bit of sensation in them. But yeah, you can't you can't breastfeed because they're not really attached to much in there. You lost all of that part of your anatomy. And so at my 4-week follow-up, basically the incision where my nipple was it just wasn't healing. I think they said the implant was just too big for the pocket. So they essentially take all your tissue out, create a new pocket, put the implant in, and then sew you back up. And that one just really wasn't taking. And so I went back in for a revision surgery. They removed that implant, put a smaller one in, closed it back up, and fingers crossed. And it worked. I mean, it's good now. But I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting a revision 4 weeks later. Absolutely not expecting that.
Extend your recovery.
Right?
Hey, why not?
Who needs to go to work?
Who needs to get out of bed?
Yeah.
Who needs to be out of pain?
Who needs to be able to do this? Yeah. And so, and they tell you, I mean, typically it's not a one and done type of surgery. Right. So you have implants, but then you have no fat or no tissue around them. So there's rippling. And, you know, it's still shocking sometimes when I you take your bra off and everything kind of, and then you're like, oh, gotta put this one back over here. And it's just, it's so strange. It is so strange, and it does not feel natural at all.
Right.
But yeah, so after that revision surgery, things kind of started looking up. But it was in my recovery that I really felt like I have to use this experience to make noise and try and educate people. And in doing that, I hope that I honor my mom and what she went through. But I had no idea. You know, I had no idea. People use Angelina Jolie all the time. She was the very first celebrity that did this as a preventative thing. And I remember being a little kid and hearing, seeing her on People magazine or whatever. But I guess I just decided that if I do anything, I want to at least help one person decide I'm getting the genetic test done. Or if one person is going through this, process and they just need to vent, I just want to hopefully be there for somebody. And if I can do that, then to me, this has all been worth it. Also, hopefully I don't get breast cancer and I can be here for my kids and
that would be
all
ideal.
of these other things. Yes. Yeah. But in my recovery, I sat there and I, even just scrolling Instagram, looking for people, searching #BRCA1 and trying to find people who have gone through this and there is a community out there. It's not easy to find, but there is such a great community out there. And so I decided that I want to get plugged in. I want to do something. I am not good at just sitting still and not trying to do different things to make an impact. And so that's when I messaged Megan. So she had posted a picture of you guys at the I think it was your first meeting. And so I just shot her a quick, I'm like, oh my gosh, do you need more help? Can I get involved? And so that's how I got to be part of this awesome committee. But then also just, the word pre-vivor is not a word that people know. And so even just introducing that into the conversation, with the American Cancer Society and other groups like that, I think makes a huge difference.
Absolutely.
And you also start to meet people who are like, oh yeah, my aunt's sister had that same surgery, or, I have a friend and her mom just did that. And it's amazing how many people, even just here locally, have done this procedure and who are using the information to try and make these life-changing decisions.
And it is crazy because I can look from a third-party perspective and say everything you've been through is so traumatic and so jarring and brave of you to go through. But I know that there's probably a sense of survivor's guilt maybe, or of you got to catch it early and others didn't, even though you have every right to every bit of trauma that others have experienced because you're a pre-vivor and you didn't get the diagnosis. I'm sure that there's some kind of a stigma or a lesser weight in some variations of the community that minimizes your experience, which is incredibly unfair. So I think that it's very, very important and crucial that people like you are speaking about your experience and the trauma of it and feeling the full array of emotions that come with it, because just because you didn't wait until you actually got the call, just because you didn't go through chemo or radiation does not make you any less of a cancer survivor. And it's, I'm sure, taboo to different people because it's very personal.
It is.
It's very, very hot button.
Yeah.
But I think that there's no room for judgment within the cancer community. It's such an awful disease, and it has wrecked so many people's lives that there's no room for pointing fingers and saying that your journey was not as bad as my journey.
Yeah. That has been hard for me. I mean, I do find like I have to kind of pump myself up sometimes. Like, it's okay to tell my story. And just because I did not have cancer doesn't mean that I didn't go through it, because I did. I still am.
Yes,
I mean, I'm
absolutely.
in therapy.
It's lifelong.
It's lifelong. And, you know, like I said, every day when I'm getting dressed, I'm like, oh, these aren't mine. Like, what the hell happened?
Exactly.
And so it is, and I would never, ever want to make a survivor or a thriver feel any type of way.
And for reference, we in the ACS community like to say thriver and not survivor. We like to say it because there's a more positive connotation than just surviving. Yeah. They're thriving. So whenever we say survivors and thrivers, that's what we mean.
Yes. But it is, you kind of, it's nerve-wracking to bring it up when you're sitting around a table with survivors, with women who have been through it, you know, even more so with treatment and things like that. And my mom has said that, you know, she feels like she went through what she went through so that my sister and I were able to make the decisions that we're able to make now. And when you think about that, I would assume that a lot of women would feel the same way. You know, would they choose that for themselves? Absolutely not. But if what they go through could then turn around and prevent it from happening to somebody else, I like to believe that that's where most people's hearts are.
Absolutely.
But it still makes it very scary to try and bring up the conversation with somebody who is actively going through treatment or just finished treatment, because you don't want to minimize their experience at all. And even too, like trying to, like, I know how it feels to have a mastectomy, and hoping that I could use that to even support women with cancer going through that process. It's the same surgery.
Yeah.
It's the same recovery. Yes, women are going through treatment. They probably feel a lot worse if they're having to do it at the same time, but they're still waking up to a body that's not their own. Yes. They're still worried. And so a lot of the things are the same. If you can kind of step out of the, well, I had cancer and you didn't have cancer.
I think it's just so sad that there's even a discussion, a discourse about that. Yeah. And I do understand from the perspective of someone who's had, you know, recurring breast cancer, or who has had the full array of treatments. And I can't even begin to imagine, because like I said, even with my mom's situation, we were very blessed with how it turned out. And in the grand scheme of things, she beat it in around a year. Yeah. That's tiny in comparison to what some people battle. Yeah. So I struggle with a little bit of that survivor's guilt by proxy, because I have friends that have lost parents to cancer and I didn't. Right. So you have this guilt that my experience, my trauma wasn't as bad. And in some ways, in many ways, it's not, because I still have my mom. I can still call her.
But it's still trauma.
And it's still trauma. And I think that rather than have this judgment and this separation in any form of the community, whether it's loved ones who have had cancer, or you who are pre-vivor, or those who are continually battling it, or those who are surviving and thriving, I think that it's such an awful world already. Why can't we just show more love? Why can't we show more support? And if, like you said, this helps one person that listens, or that hears your story from a different medium, get that genetic test and avoid a whole path down a road they don't want to take, or spare their loved ones, I think that it's so worth it. And you're so brave for speaking about that and revisiting and digging this back up every single time you do.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Can you share where you got your testing done, or any other resources you know, so that if anyone listening wants to pursue that, they can?
Yeah. So I was able to do mine, like I said, through the team in Kansas City. They literally mailed it to my door, did it, sent it off.
So you would think through a PCP.
PCP, or like your gynecologist, start there for sure. But then resources, like on social media, the Besties is a really good resource.
That's amazing.
Have lots of information, and they are so inclusive of just anybody who's affected by breast or ovarian cancer. And then BRCA Strong is another avenue on social media, and they do a lot of support, and they send like mastectomy care packages and information and things like that. So those I think would be the two where I would start, just to gather information. But yeah, you also just really have to advocate for yourself. Yeah. I got lucky in that I was using the same people that were understanding of my mom's situation and all of that. But I hear in the breast cancer community, as for pre-vivors, I mean, you have to really fight for a doctor to even help you get the
when you're
genetic
so
testing
young.
done. Yeah.
Because it's a very, I could go on about this.
Yes, it's
I
so
probably
backwards.
will. Because I do want to do an episode with a doctor that can give us the medical side of things,
Yeah.
but preferably one that actually listens to women.
Right.
So
Good
I
luck.
think it's very difficult because you don't want to be in that situation. You want to listen to the doctor when they say you have nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
Whenever they say, oh, you're fine, this is great, it's on your dad's side, it's no big deal, because
Right.
you want to believe that. So to then push it and be like, no, I really want to know for sure,
Yeah.
is very difficult. And usually it's at a financial expense, it's at emotional expense,
Yeah.
and it definitely is worth doing, but it doesn't mean it's not difficult to do.
Yeah.
And I know that the Breast Imaging Center of the Ozarks here in Springfield, they are able to do genetic testing. They can do early screening mammograms. They can do
Awesome.
body composition scans. There's a lot of different resources that they have, and they take insurance. They can also do a cash pricing. If you don't have insurance that will cover you, which is unfortunately very common whenever you're younger, they can accommodate you just paying for out of pocket.
Yeah.
And their pricing is very flexible as far as payment plans. So if this is something that's important to you and you aren't able to get that covered, then I definitely recommend going through them. Dr. Lackey and her husband, also Dr. Lackey, are incredible. They've been amazing at working with us through ECS and explaining everything, and you can just truly tell they are doctors who listen.
Yeah. Well, that's hard to find.
It's very hard to find.
It's hard to find.
And my mom, I, of course, made her switch from going to the local hospital to going to the breast imaging center, and even every detail from the waiting room to the care, and it's very personal. It's a complete night and day difference from going to a bigger organization.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, they have to be different because it's more clinical. They have such a high volume of patients that you can't expect them to bring a drink and a snack and a hug to every single person, unfortunately. But I would highly recommend that to anyone who, tell your moms, if you are of mammogram age, even if you don't have the risk, I highly recommend going there. They, like I said, they take insurance like any other place would, so you can go and do the same thing. And they just truly take the time to sit with you and talk about your results. You get them right then, so you don't have to leave and wait. It's just...
which is
incredible.
awesome.
Yeah, so I can't say enough good things about them.
Yeah.
And for me, you are supposed to start with your mammograms 10 years prior to when your mom's diagnosis was.
Yep.
So I have another year or two before I'll start doing that. But it's so great to know that whenever I do, they're there. Accessible. Yeah, they're kind and understanding, and you're not going to be gaslit into thinking that there's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
For people who want to reach out to you, can you list your social handles or ways that people can get a hold of you? If you prefer email, anything else?
Yeah. I'm on Instagram. It's at the Allen Den.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably the easiest way
Perfect.
to get a hold of me. I would love to just get connected with more pre-vivers. I would love, someday my goal is to create some sort of like support group or, nonprofit that really breeds into pre-vivers and the ongoing care. Because it does feel too like you have your mastectomy, like you're good, you don't have to worry. But that's not it's not the end of it.
Right.
It's still, you're still going through all the emotional things. Your body is different, and that is just something that is really just jarring, honestly. You wake up and
it's foreign.
It is. And then on the ovarian cancer side, I mean, that's the other half of this. I'm still getting those screenings, but making the decision to have my fallopian tubes removed or fallopian tubes and ovaries. And if you have all of it removed, then do you start hormone replacement therapy? So it doesn't just end after your mastectomy.
There's more decisions
there are
to be
so
made.
many more decisions to be made. But just the ability to make those decisions is just the greatest gift that someone, I think, could have.
Yeah.
And so yes, genetic testing is just, it is life-changing. Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power.
So
is there anything else that you'd like to add besides get your exams, get your BRCA testing if you have family history?
Yep.
Do your self-exams.
So, and it's the first, so feel it on the first. That's a good reminder.
Good reminder.
First of every month, just feel your girls. And there are so many, you literally can Google like how to do it.
Yeah, diagrams, videos.
Yes,
everything.
But you're never too young. I mean, you start, even if you don't have a family history, I mean,
my mom didn't have family history.
Exactly. So yes, just feel it on the first would be my other.
Yep. You can't be too cautious.
Exactly.
Well, I am so in awe of you and your strength, and you're so well spoken about it. I have loved working with you through the committee, and I even more love this conversation and just your willingness to share your story with everyone. Yeah. Thank you for being courageous and kind and just so well spoken with everything.
Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I think it's going to help a lot of women. My audience is about 99.9% women.
Perfect.
I think there's the occasional male listener, and we do love you because men can get breast cancer too.
Absolutely.
So do your exams, do your family testing as well. But I think that this is just going to help so many people, and I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for listening. If you need any of the resources, I'll make sure that they're tagged. They're linked below. Stay tuned for that giveaway. And if you would like to reach out to Sydney, she is very wonderful. She's delightful to talk to, and she will welcome your messages. So thank you for listening, and we will see you next week. Bye.